Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Yeshichansam. Here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Wednesday, the 28th of October. India holds first major state elections in Bihar since coronavirus outbreak. Mike Pompeo meets Sri Lankan President amid China concern in Indo-Pacific. And US envoy Khalilzad calls for urgent reduction of violence in Afghanistan. And now for all the details. The first phase of voting in India's crucial Bihar state was held on Wednesday, the country's first key election since the outbreak of coronavirus. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata party currently rules Bihar with an ally, but is facing a united opposition. The voting in the state will be held over 3 phases and the results are expected on November 10.
India's eastern Bihar, a politically crucial state, underwent the first phase of polls on Wednesday, the first major election in the country since the coronavirus outbreak. Bihar, which is India's third most populous state, has recorded more than 200,000 coronavirus infections. Scores of people turned up to vote on Wednesday while following COVID-19 protocols. The polling for the 243 assembly seats in Bihar is divided into 3 phases and the results will be declared on November 10. Polling stations were sanitized at regular intervals. Every voter had to undergo thermal screening, hand sanitization, and those coming without masks were given masks and gloves at the booths by poll officials.
शिक्षा की तरफ ध्यान दिया जाए, रोजगार की तरफ ध्यान दिया जाए, बिजली, पानी और सड़क निर्माण ये सब में ज़्यादा फोकस हो.
Meanwhile, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi held election rallies in other parts of the state on Wednesday. Bihar is a key electoral battleground where Modi's Bharatiya Janata party has been in power for more than a decade as a partner in an alliance with regional party the Janata Dal United. The polls pit the ruling alliance against united opposition led by regional Rashtriya Janata Dal teamed up with the Indian National Congress.
2 terrorists belonging to Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Muhammad terror outfit were neutralised in an encounter in Budgam district of India's Jammu and Kashmir territory on Tuesday night. The encounter broke out after a terrorist fired upon security forces who were conducting search operations in Chadoora area of Budgam based on specific inputs. 1 soldier was injured and 2 terrorists were killed in the gunfight that ensued, police said. Operations were still underway in the area on Wednesday. India has long accused Pakistan of training and infiltrating terrorists across the border to spread unrest in Kashmir Valley. Pakistan, however, denies the allegations.
इनकाउंटर में 2 टेररिस्ट मारे गए. दोनों जैश-ए-मोहम्मद आउटफिट से ताल्लुक़ रखते हैं, जिसमें एक आइडेंटिफिकेशन हुआ था, वो पाकिस्तानी है, वलीद भाई खालिद इलियास बोलते हैं. दूसरा कि साउथ कश्मीर पुलवामा डिस्ट्रिक्ट का है, जावेद.
US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo held talks with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa in the Sri Lankan capital Colombo on Wednesday on a range of bilateral issues. Pompeo's 2-day visit to the island nation comes at a time as America seeks to balance China's growing influence in the region and to advance the common goals for a free and open Indo-Pacific.
US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who arrived in Sri Lanka on Tuesday for a 2-day visit, met with the Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa for discussions in capital Colombo on Wednesday. Both the leaders discussed the economic partnership based on transparent trade and investment, key components of the post-pandemic economic recovery, as well as a shared commitment to democratic freedoms. The meeting took place after China raised objections on Monday to what it called US bullying of Sri Lanka after Washington said the Indian Ocean island must make difficult but necessary choices regarding its ties with China. Pompeo later met with Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena and reaffirmed United States' commitment to a sovereign and secure Sri Lanka.
Indeed, a strong, sovereign Sri Lanka is a powerful and strategic partner for the United States on the world stage. It can be a beacon for a free and open Indo-Pacific. Look, that's quite a contrast to what China seeks. We see from bad deals, violations of sovereignty, and lawlessness on land and sea that the Chinese Communist Party is a predator. And the United States comes in a different way. We come as a friend and as a partner.
Sri Lanka is a neutral, non-aligned country committed to peace, as I mentioned earlier. On that principles, we hope to continue with our relations with the United States and other countries.
The talks were followed by a visit to the St. Anthony's Church, one of the places targeted by suicide bombers last year. After Sri Lanka, Pompeo travels to the Maldives and then to Indonesia and Vietnam.
As anger continues to surge over cartoons of Islam's most revered prophet in France, protesters across Pakistan called for a boycott of French goods and the severing of diplomatic ties between the two countries. In Bangladesh, thousands of protesters marched in capital Dhaka on Tuesday in response to France's stance on cartoon law.
Crowds of chanting protesters in Pakistan's port city of Karachi burned an effigy of French President Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday as anger surged throughout the Muslim world over his comments following the murder of a teacher. Protesters across Pakistan have called for a boycott of French goods and the severing of diplomatic ties between the two countries. The row has its roots in a knife attack outside a French school on October 16, in which a man of Chechen origin beheaded Samuel Paty, a teacher who had shown pupils cartoons of Prophet Muhammad in a civics lesson on freedom of speech. Macron has pledged to fight Islamist separatism, saying it was threatening to take over some Muslim communities in France, comments which have sparked anger among some Muslims.
इस वाक़े की शदीद मज़म्मत करते हैं और हुकूमत पाकिस्तान से ये कहते हैं कि वो फिलफौर फ्रांस के सिफारतकार को बरतरफ करे और फ्रांस से अपनी तमाम तिजारती, सियासी जो माशी जो रवाबित हैं उसको ख़त्म करे.
In Bangladesh, thousands of protesters marched in capital Dhaka on Tuesday against the images being displayed in France of the Prophet Muhammad. The demonstrators were supporters of the Islamic Constitution movement in Bangladesh and marched towards the French embassy in Dhaka before police stopped them at one point.
ফ্রান্সে যে আল্লাহর রাসূলকে ব্যঙ্গ করা হয়েছে তার প্রতিবাদে আমরা সর্বোচ্চ শাস্তি দাবি করতেছি। শুধু ফ্রান্স নাই, বিশ্বের যে কোনো জায়গায় যদি আল্লাহর রাসূল নিয়ে কটূক্তি করা হয় সেখানে আমরা সর্বোচ্চ শাস্তি মৃত্যুদণ্ড আমরা কামনা করি এবং সরকার সহ আন্তর্জাতিক আদালত আইন সংস্থা প্রশাসন ওআইসি আছে তাদের কাছে আমাদের একই থাকি।
France has warned its citizens living or traveling in several Muslim-majority countries to take extra security precautions because of a surge of anger over cartoon row.
Moving on, Pakistan's National Command and Operations Center on Wednesday approved the use of antigen testing for coronavirus patients a day after government said that second wave of coronavirus has begun in the country. As active cases of COVID-19 surpassed the 11,600 mark, Pakistan-administered Kashmir, the region under Pakistan's illegal control, which has poor healthcare infrastructure, reported 3,889 confirmed cases. Pakistan's NCOC National Command and Operations Center noted on Wednesday that the spread of the coronavirus and the increased positivity ratio is 80% in 11 major cities. On Tuesday, Special Assistant to the Prime Minister Imran Khan on Health Dr. Faisal Sultan formally announced that the second wave of the deadly virus has started in the country as active cases of COVID-19 surpassed the 11,000 mark. In Pakistan-administered Kashmir, COVID-19 cases continue to rise as well, with Muzaffarabad district reporting 809 cases, the highest in the illegally occupied region.
बहुत से पेशेंट होम आइसोलेटेड हैं और उनमें से भी जो सीरियस होता है वो हमारे पास शिफ्ट हो रहा है. वो दिन ब दिन ये तादाद बढ़ती जा रही है. उसका रीज़न यही है कि हम लोगों ने SOPs को फॉलो करना छोड़ दिया है, क्योंकि सेकंड लेयर है ये ज़्यादा शदीद है और इस वक्त हम मुजफ्फराबाद टॉप ऑफ द लिस्ट हैं. तो इसमें मेरे सब लोगों से ये रिक्वेस्ट है सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग, फेस मास्क और अननेसेसरी मूवमेंट्स को रिस्ट्रिक्ट करें.
Meanwhile, health officials have indicated that if the number of COVID-19 cases continue to increase, the government would have no option but to take unpopular decisions due to which the country's economy would be affected. In news from Afghanistan, U.S. Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad said on Tuesday that violence in Afghanistan was too high and the Afghan government and the Taliban insurgents must work harder towards forging a ceasefire at their peace talks.
U.S. Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad said on Tuesday that violence in Afghanistan was too high and the Kabul government and Taliban insurgents must work harder towards forging a ceasefire at their peace talks. Khalilzad in a series of tweets said, "I returned to the region disappointed that despite commitments to lower violence, it has not happened. The window to achieve a political settlement will not stay open forever." The talks between an Afghan government delegation and the Taliban have been going on in Doha since mid-September. But progress has been slow and diplomats and officials have warned that rising violence back home is sapping trust. On Tuesday, in two separate car bombings, at least 5 Afghan Special Force members were killed in Khost province and 3 civilians were killed in capital Kabul. But it was not immediately clear who was behind the attacks. The United Nations also released sobering statistics on Tuesday, highlighting that nearly 6,000 Afghan civilians were killed or wounded in the first 9 months of 2020 as heavy fighting rages on despite efforts for peace.
Despite the reopening of economy amid the COVID-19 pandemic, businesses like firecracker factories in India's western Ahmedabad city continue to face financial difficulties even as the Festival of Lights Diwali approaches.
Firecracker manufacturers in India's western Ahmedabad city are disappointed as the stock has been piling up at the manufacturing units at a time when a few weeks are left for the Hindu Festival of Lights Diwali, as there are not many buyers amid the coronavirus pandemic. The units which used to get orders for firecrackers worth millions of dollars are now struggling to survive as the pandemic has brought their business to a complete halt. Manufacturers said there has been very less production of fresh firecrackers this year due to a fall in the number of orders because of the pandemic. Only a handful of workers were seen making firecrackers in the units.
इस बार कोरोना के लिए कोई भी हमारा ऑर्डर है नहीं, न पिछले वर्षों की तरह से इस साल हमारा कोई ऑर्डर नहीं है। 70% हमारा काम एक बार कम है। हर बार हमारा 20 मजदूर काम करते हैं, उसकी जगह अभी 12 मजदूर काम कर रहे हैं। न अभी हम 4 दिन के बाद में हम काम बंद कर रहे हैं। कोई भी घरागी दिवाली की पटाखे कोई खरीद नहीं रहा है।
Diwali is celebrated with great fervor and gaiety all over India, as it marks the return of Hindu Lord Rama to Ayodhya in northern India after he defeated Ravana, the powerful demon king. Devotees decorate their homes with oil and electric lamps worshipping Lord Rama and celebrate by bursting firecrackers at homes with family and friends.
Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude the top stories once again. India holds first major state elections in Bihar since coronavirus outbreak. Mike Pompeo meets Sri Lankan President amid China concern in Indo-Pacific. And US envoy Khalilzad calls for urgent reduction of violence in Afghanistan. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/AsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @AsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time tomorrow. Good night.